Hello, this is Retro Gaz from Norwich Retro Games, and today I'm going to be taking you for a walk around the collection. This was filmed in 2020, so it's a little bit out of date, but yeah, you'll see quite a bit of what I've got. Yeah, so this is my miscellaneous shelf. You can see on the right hand side there's my equipment, my microphone headset and laptop, which I used to use when I was doing the evening show on Radio Norfolk. So I did that over COVID. So yeah, that ran for about a year, and that was great fun, being able to talk on the radio and do various bits and bobs. Yeah, moving down here, this would have been my testing area. So I've got various items that I would have been testing: joysticks, SD cards, and yeah, that's the VIC-20 that I think I just bought the cartridge for, testing out some cleaning bits on there. So as we pan around to the first real shelf, we've got some Amstrad stuff there, GX4000, Amstrad 6128 there that I actually recovered from a skip at work that somebody binned, and a £2.50 drive belt. And yeah, we had it up and running, so that was a good find. Moving up, we've got some into the Spectrum area. This is my Sinclair section, so we've got some big box Ultimate Play the Game cassettes there, so various interfaces and cassette decks and joysticks and printers and everything else for the specky games, and I've got a few of those, so they go back about 2 or 3 deep. There's various small box, big box, even some, you might even see some Spectrum Next games on there, Warhawk and Baggers in Space. Got that in preparation for the Spectrum Next. And then we've got the box Spectrum items, and the ZX80, which I bought from somebody at work who had actually built that from scratch, from a kit. And then we've got the ZX81 games and the Sinclair QL. I think that's only ever come out of the box once. Yeah. Anyway, moving on, we're now moving to my miscellaneous 8-bit section. So we've got, you can see a Dragon 32 and an MX80 there, or whatever, MX700, sorry, there. Yeah, there's miscellaneous loose machines, some Electron games there, and a boxed Tandy Coco 2, which I really should play on. I took out the box once years ago, never actually done it played on it anymore, so that needs to be dug out and played on, I think. So here we've got TI-904A and various cartridges for that, some cassettes for the Dragon 32. There's an Electron box behind there and an Auric one as well. So yeah, Dragon 32 cassettes and I think 1 cartridge on there. Then moving down, we've got the MSX, and there's a Sword M5 there, which again I really haven't spent time on. MSX cartridges, cassettes, some Acornsoft games for the Beeb and BBC tapes. Got quite a few Acornsoft games, but they go behind there, so you can't really see them. This was my first real home computer, the Aquarius, Mattel Aquarius. So I've got a number of stuff for there: printers, cassettes, quite a few cartridge games and cassette games. Back in the day, I had literally 2 cartridges, no cassettes, and so yeah, one of the first things when I got into collecting was, right, I want to collect all the games for that Mattel Aquarius that I never had as a kid. So we've got a boxed Einstein there. That on the left, by the way, that's a massive, you might have seen that at events if you've been to any of my events, but that's my big 20-inch CRT that I got off free cycle. This would have been in my testing section, so there's a VCS, a Famicom, and a Commodore 64 there. So I probably would have been preparing them for what would have been Norwich Games Festival 2020. Obviously that was cancelled through the COVID, but yeah, I would have been prepping for it. There's a free 14-inch CRT that I got given to me, and some, obviously once that, a Dreamcast, and yeah, a random PS3 that I must have been trying out for something or just playing on. Yeah, so we got this. So that's a Famicom. Various cartridges for that, a bunch of, that's one thing, I had a lot of handsets, remote controls for the TVs, you know, they're always handy to have some of them at hand. And then some miscellaneous magazines. What we got there looks like Atari format and some other bits, Spectrum magazines maybe, I'm not too sure. There's a selection of little bits and bobs I picked up over the years from events, sweets and drinks and stuff. I never opened them, just keep them there for display. A couple of mugs on there as well. And that's my little section for testing and bits and bobs for, yeah, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful things in there. It's my miscellaneous area. So a few more mugs. And then as we move around to the next set, you can see on the floor actually the boxes that I use for events. I didn't have many back then because I only had about 2 or 3 boxfuls of stuff, but now they're everywhere. So there's a Commodore PET, which I wanted to get hold of that because that was the you can't really see it 'cause it's in a dust cover, but that was the first machine I ever played on. First computer I ever used. I had them at school, so I was kind of fond of those because it brings back lots of memories of high school and stuff. So we're moving up, and there's an Apple II. Actually, an Apple IIe. I don't take that to events, even though my friend built a nice little floppy disk emulator for it, so you could potentially take that to events. And then we've got a few famous one step beyond bag there, people may remember. A few few LCD screens and stuff, because back then when I did events I didn't have many CRTs, so I had 2 CRTs basically, 2 or 3, and then the rest of them were flat screen LCDs from the time. And there's a Commodore rack, so we've got Commodore shelves, so we've got the plus with the VIC-20 +4 C16 above it. There's a whole bunch of C64 games. They go back quite a way. Big single, big box, all sorts of odds and sods in there. There's a Commodore 64C and C64. We've got that box in the background. Yellow box and green is a Mouse and Cheese, and some C2Ns. And then we're going into the Amiga section. So we've got a whole bunch of big box Amiga games in there. I think they go back too deep as well. And then below that are the actual Amiga computers. I think there's an Amiga Batman pack there and a 1200 cartoon capers. And then back to my favourite area, which is the Atari, and there we've got an 400 box, 800, and some big box cartridge games. More cartridge games, some box, some loose, different variations, grey and dark boxes. There's my big collection of Atari cassette games, so I've got quite a few of those over the years. The blue ones there, by the way, they're all my English software ones, because they were some of the first games I played when I was a kid. And then we've got the VCS, so we've got a whose set of box cartridges, some loose cartridges, and behind there is a boxed VCS, Star Raiders box and other bits and bobs. Moving up to there, still with Atari, we've got the 520 ST, my first 16-bit computer, because I went down the Atari route rather than the Amiga, so there's a bunch of stuff in there. And then above it is the 7800 on the top shelf with various cartridge games. As we pan around, we're still on the Atari, so there you've got the Atari Jaguar, some other bits in the background, but the 5200 games, I can probably just about make out the 5200 console in this grey box behind them, but there are 5200 cartridge games, and the black stack there are the loose cartridges. I picked up quite a few of those from America. They were quite cheap back in the day, so I got a nice collection of them. Moving down with the Atari, we've got the Lynx, so I think that's a Lynx 1 box, is it? I think, yep. There's a Lynx 2 in that grey case there. Some Lynx games and some floppy disks in there. There's a couple of Junior Atari 2600 Juniors by the looks of that. Moving down to the 8-bit stuff, still there's the XE, so we've got Box 130 XE, loose 65 XE, and tape deck, and then there's a whole mishmash of power supplies, cables, joysticks, and badges, and God knows what else has ended up on there. And then going down, we've got my favourite era, my 800 XL, so we've got 800 XLs down the bottom, printers, 1010 cassettes, 1050 disk drives, and a random Aquarius just leaning up against there, obviously in the wrong section. Now this big thing here is my arcade cabinet, so I bought this some years ago with Star Force in it. The monitor packed up, and as it was specific monitor, I just ended up sticking a big PC CRT in there and wired up a main PC basically, so that's now a main multi-game main machine. These are the boxes that I take to events, so that's obviously an Atari section, but I was obviously preparing for an Atari day then. And so there's a tripod from a camera, and as we move up through the rather fetching yellow wall, there's that wall, by the way, is now completely covered with stacked plastic cases that I take to events, but there's a few pieces of artwork from the Atari art book, so I just put them on there, some pretty colourful, just added some colour to the wall. So there's one of my favourite consoles, the Neo Geo CD, and some CD games above it, so that's a regular visitor to the events. And then there's so that's my original Crystal Xbox. I have taken it to a few events, but not often. Well, this section's mainly Sega, so we've got the Master System there, and Master System 2 above it, loose, loads of games, because that was my first real games console, I'll say. So I'm really fond of the Master System, so I've got a bunch of games for that. Below that we've got the Mega Drive 2. So again, I've got a boxed Mega Drive 2, Mega Drive, boxed Mega Drive 1, and loads of games. Just a few random Smurfs there that I started collecting back in the day. I think they're from the 70s, when they Smurfs. Then further down we've got a Sega 32X box and a few games because they're so blooming expensive. There's a Mega CD there, which that one didn't work. And on the right then we've got we've got a loose Game Gear, which you couldn't really see then, in some cartridge games. This is the Saturn, so we've got Saturn, the Knights game and controller, and a bunch of games which I would have picked up cheap at various stores and eBay back in the day. That's when you could pick up them sort of things in charity shops and stuff. And below that is Dreamcast. You can't quite see that. Yeah, so there we start with all my Retro Gamer magazines. On the next shelf, which is quite dark, is a Neo Geo AES with a multi-game cartridge. Because you can imagine the game's quite expensive, so I picked it up on AliExpress or somewhere for a decent price. A little modest selection of tabletop games, including Astro Wars, which I absolutely love. I think there's a Neo Geo Pocket there with a few games. This is mainly the Nintendo section, so we've got Nintendo NES cartridges boxed and loose, Famicom games boxed and loose, and then we've got the N64 cartridges. GoldenEye signed by David Dirk, GameCube games, 3DS games, and those on the right are actually Virtual Boy games. Yeah, so I've got a few of those. I think that actually box there is a Virtual Boy boxed, or spares or something, and then some GameCubes and bits and bobs. So on the top shelf there we've got a bit of a mishmash of stuff. There CDI games, I think, on the left, and they're just all random sort of old cartridges, games machines from the 70s, early 80s, mostly TV games like Pong and Pong type games like that. And yeah, so they most of those don't work anyway. They're a bit cheap and cheerful. And then this is some more miscellaneous stuff on top, like Wii and some other magazines which I can't quite make out. So this is my Vectrex, which I bought from Game Station many years ago, but only lasted 6 months, and now it's faulty, so I need to get that sorted out at one point. And we've got some games above that for there, and there's a box Simon on there. The rest of the Nintendo here, so we've got the box Famicom and disk system for it. There's the boxed Virtual Boy, which doesn't get a lot of play for obvious reasons. There's a Japanese Power Glove for the NES, and some miscellaneous, rather not very good coloured consoles there that have gone a bit funny in the sun, I think. And then we've got the N64, which I won for Retro Revival. I actually won that in a raffle, Retro Revival, a few years back. And then some boxed consoles, NES and SNES, and controllers and other miscellaneous bits and bobs on there, and a rather fetching yellow, or whatever you want to call it, brown GameCube. And then there's some other sort of TV game console things from the 70s and 80s, and then they're my Edge magazines at the bottom, and you can see there's those consoles there, by the way. If you don't recognise them, are the actual Vault Mace database. So that was my first console, not my first real console, my first console back in the early 80s. I think my parents got it cheap, and it was fun. I had Space Invaders on it. Got quite a few games for that, by the way. I did start collecting for that because that was my very first video game I actually played at home. So I got quite a few cartridges for that. In television with various cartridges, and there's a speech section there, speech item there on the left. ColecoVision, I've got box ColecoVision, the steering wheel, that's the Atari VCS adapter on the left, and a few games I picked up for that. Then we move up to the Sony, the PlayStation, so I've got PlayStation 1 and a bunch of games for that, PlayStation 2 with quite a lot of disc games. I mean, I spent ages with Vice City and San Andreas. That was a nice part of my life, is playing on the PS2. And then moving up to the massive one, so that is a huge Coleco Adam. So that's the actual expansion module version that would have plugged into the Coleco, and it's got a printer and a massive unit. I mean, I had that imported from France, and that was huge. So there's Atari 5200. We obviously saw the cartridges around the other side, and then I think there are 3DO games behind them other boxes, but there we've got my two Odysseys. I ended up with two Odysseys because I was bidding on one, but I didn't think I was going to win, so I put a cheeky bid on a second one. Not only did I win the first one, but also won the second one. So I ended up with two, but I mean, they're quite iconic, really. The first games console ever released, so it's good. And they've all got like the screen overlays and the extra bits on there and that, so they're pretty cool. So there's a 5200, which I would like to actually play on one day. Yeah, and that's basically it. Anyway, so that is the collection, and I hope you've enjoyed having a little wander around and seeing a few of the odds and sorts. Obviously, there's a few rare things in that selection. It's not the biggest collection, I'm sure, out there, but it's stuff that I've collected because I wanted to collect them because they were my favourites, and some other items that were just rare or just, you know, passing fad. That's what I'll have some of that. So there's some rare stuff, there's some common stuff, and there's some stuff that's special to me. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed having a wander around in the games cave, and see you on the next video. Okay, bye.